Check 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Kevin Zwicker from Fast Count, and this is your Monday Night Raw post show for September 15th, 2025. Guys, it's been a very hectic week for the world of professional wrestling. It was announced that WrestleMania 43 will be taking place in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Get your travel preparations for that event started ASAP, especially if you're a woman. It was announced that Andrade and WWE have been parting ways. They are no longer a thing together. And it's strange because, all the different reports coming out of it, that once it initially hit, some people were going with the angle that he was unhappy, which would make sense, and it's still not verified that that's not the case because the guy was barely used on TV. He probably wasn't happy with the role that he was in at the moment, but it has come out ever since the announcement, the different leakages from different dirt sheet reporters that this was a WWE decision. Apparently, he was very hard to get in contact with over the last several weeks. He failed a wellness violation, which under TKO, we have not publicly heard of anybody failing wellness, failing the wellness policies. Does not mean that anybody hasn't, but we just haven't heard that under this new TKO regime. So it's been an incredibly busy couple of days in the world of wrestling, right? Guys, please do what the button in the corner says and hit that like button and subscribe. This was the Go Home Raw to WrestlePalooza. Everybody, if you don't know, WrestlePalooza is going on this weekend. It is also earlier in the day going to be AEW All Out. We will be getting you a post show immediately following WrestlePalooza. It's going to be a little bit of a hybrid, kind of going to let the way the flow kind of dictates as to how in depth we're going to go with All Out, especially due to the fact that Eddie Kingston is returning for that show, which should be very eventful, should be a big deal. It's going to just kind of be a little bit of an interweaving of the both. I'm mainly going to probably focus on WrestlePalooza because I believe that that's going to be the show that most people are going to be talking about coming out of this weekend. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena, the first match we see AJ Lee have in over a decade. It's going to be a very big show. First PLE on ESPN. So this is going to be a massive occasion for the WWE and for professional wrestling in general, with All Out taking place earlier in the day. But this show tonight takes place in Springfield, Mass. You guys don't know, and it was made abundantly clear by John Cena that this is where John Cena's football career took place. John Cena played for Springfield, Mass. College. He was an O-lineman, so this was a very pro John Cena crowd. He's also a West Newbury, Massachusetts kid as well, so you knew that the guy was going to get a big round of applause coming back to this show. But we started off with as we all usually see when Raw kicks off. We see the wrestlers coming through the arena, and we see Jey Uso coming through with his brother Jimmy. And before they could really step foot and get deeper into the arena, he is confronted by LA Knight. If you guys remember what took place last week, LA Knight was kind of blindsided by Jey Uso. So we see these two confronting each other before the show really kicks off. Adam Pearce steps in between them. He says, "In my office, we're going to discuss it." LA Knight says, "I don't have anything I want to discuss. I don't want to talk to you." He says, "You're going to talk to me if you don't want to see a couple of zeros missing from your paycheck," which is, hey, a valid enough reason for you to want to talk to this man now, right? We don't play with our money. It's not something that we all enjoy being manipulated with. But we start the show. When we get to the arena, it's a very pro John Cena crowd. It's very much so anticipating his appearance. We kick it off right with John Cena. Give the people what they want. He is embraced like the prodigal son. And he comes in and he starts reminiscing about his football career and how special Springfield, Mass is to him. And he says, there's many young fans in here who didn't know that I played for Springfield, Mass, college. There's many older fans in here that didn't know I played for Springfield, Mass college either, because I was no lineman. If you guys don't know, linemen do not get many praise. You're never going to see them in the the newspaper. You're never going to see lineman highlights. I have never heard one time in my life somebody hit me up and say, "Hey, do you want to watch these Trent Williams highlights?" It does not go down. But he goes on and he starts talking about that. He says, I'm surrounded by friends here. I'm surrounded by family. He shouts out his niece, who it is her birthday, so she wasn't able to attend the show. And then he says, Brock Lesnar. He starts talking about Brock Lesnar, right? Brock Lesnar is somebody who's been intertwined with John Cena's career for over 2 decades. If you guys remember their infamous SummerSlam match where John Cena was, basically murdered in the ring, by Brock Lesnar. It was a very, memorable match. One of the more memorable matches of his whole career, in my opinion. And he says, Brock Lesnar, he wants to end the last real world champion. He says, I got this target on my back. He says, it's all these, really hyping up Brock Lesnar, who is like this death machine. Brock Lesnar, he is a guy who is controversial. Brock Lesnar, he is a guy who, is indestructible. You get F you Brock Lesnar chants. He says, I could say no, right? He talks about this, people say, they ask him, why don't I say no? He says, I could go to the back and politic my way and say, hey, I've been here for over 2 decades. I can keep my health. I could say no. He says, but why I don't say no, saying no would be keeping it safe and easy. And he says, I am going to fight my battles out here. I'm not going to fight my battles backstage, politicking. And he says, I am the real world champion. And what the last real world champion is about, it's not about belts. It's not about politicking. It's about going out there and giving your all. It's all about hustle, loyalty, and respect. You knew he was going to find a way to shoehorn that into this promo. This is Brock Lesnar. He says, you think am I afraid of Brock Lesnar? Hell, he's like, yes, I am. He said, do you think I'm going to back down to Brock Lesnar? Hell no. And he finishes this promo with the famous lines that he always finishes his promos. If you want some, come get some. Brock Lesnar, John Cena, main eventing WrestlePalooza. One last time, we're going to see these two guys get into the ring. I don't know, quality-wise, how good this match is going to be. We haven't seen Brock Lesnar wrestle in 2 years. John Cena, before the last couple of matches, because I'm just going to be abundantly honest with you guys, I think his match with Cody Rhodes was very good at SummerSlam. I think his match with CM Punk was very good. I think his match with Sami Zayn was very good. He's been kind of on a roll. Prior to that, the guy it was pretty clear that the guy was washed, but he's been gaining it back. John Cena's back in the groove of things. It feels like he's going to finish this thing up in a high note. I think it's crazy how, and I don't know if you guys know this, but his last match was originally supposed to take place in Boston, right? That was supposed to be the last match. Saturday night's main event, John Cena, last match in Boston. His last match is now officially taking place in Washington, D.C. He is, and the reason why, I'm sure you guys can probably connect the dots already, is money. Boston lost the bidding process to get this match and this event, and it's just insane how everything comes down to money, right? That if you want to know why WWE does certain things, why certain things are taking place in WWE, always follow the money, and you will get your answer as to why these things are taking place. But we get backstage. We're in Adam Pearce's office. LA Knight and Jey Uso, they're continuing to argue. He says, what is it going to take? Basically, in LA Knight says, I want the same thing that I wanted last week. I want one of the bronze. Breaker, Reed, it doesn't matter. That's what I want. And Pierce says, you got it, but you're not going to go into it alone. You're going to have to find a partner. And LA Knight says, do I really have to find a partner? And Pierce says, I'm going to pick one for you if you don't. and you see LA Knight says, you know who I pick? I pick Jimmy Uso. Jimmy Uso, right? And you see, you know, the frustration on the face of Jay, and that's something that's going to play in later on in the night. Oh, my God. Guys, it's been a long night for real. So, we continue to see this backstage interaction, right? Between Lyra Valkyria, and Roxanne Perez. That's going to be the next match that's going to take place on this card. I'm excited. These two individuals are probably one of my favorites on the roster. I've said it multiple times throughout the last several weeks on what's going on with WWE. I feel like the men have really been outclassed by the ladies. I think that the women have really been able to do their thing. They've really been able to be the highlight of Monday Night Raw. I think they are the highlight of WWE in general. I think that there's not really a lot of compelling storylines when it comes to the guys, and especially coming out of this John Cena retirement tour. I think that's going to be something that is going to be really interesting because WWE right now, for me, it feels as if they're resting on nostalgia. Nostalgia is keep fucking with my hat because it looks weird on camera. It looks like I'm leaning it for some reason, and it's not. I want it to be straight. Is it straight? Probably not. Close enough. But we get into this match. Lyra, Roxanne. Lyra, who's kind of in the midst of this thing with Bayley. Bayley, who has been kind of off of her rocker. And we really got to see that, be showcased tonight for the very first time because we haven't seen Bayley on screen in a while. And we see these two in the ring. Lyra, for the lots of this match, she's being dominated by Roxanne Perez. These two are one of the younger up-and-coming stars on the main roster right now. These two ladies doing what they're doing, enjoying it. This is a really high-quality match. Lyra, she was able to, hit the Nightwing for the win. Raquel Rodriguez was at ringside. She was ejected earlier for interfering. But after this match, Raquel, she came back. Roxanne Perez, they both were double teaming Lyra Valkyria. And this is where we saw the return of Bayley. Bayley, who we haven't seen in several weeks, made her presence known. She came back. She was able to clear the ring. We know that Lyra and Bayley aren't on the same page right now. And this is the moment where we saw the whole thing that we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks of all these different vignettes take place in person. We see Bayley kind of sitting in the ring, and she's battling these voices in her head. We don't know what to make of it. And then she starts hugging everybody on ringside. She starts hugging, the ring announcers, the timekeepers, the ref, a couple of people in the front row. And then she kind of runs away like some raccoon who just got done eating out of your neighbor's garbage can. Guys, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. Are you guys looking forward to WrestlePalooza? What are you guys going to do that day? Are you going to be watching All Out and not watch WrestlePalooza? Are you going to watch WrestlePalooza and not watch All Out? Or are you going to find a way to watch both? I'm curious as to what you guys are going to be checking out that day because it's going to be a long day for professional wrestling on Saturday. And I know that some people are looking forward to it. Me personally, as a content creator, when I know that there's going to be a long day of professional wrestling, I immediately say, hey, I am going to be able to flood the marketplace for the next couple of days. But we are backstage. Adam Pearce again. We have Stephanie Vakir. We got Io Sky. And Adam Pearce lets them know that, hey, this contract is signed, sealed, and delivered. It is official. And you see Stephanie Vakir tell Io, hey, let the best woman win. Io repeats it back. She says, but I'm going to win. Then we see Asuka and Kairi Singh. interrupt them during this face-to-face. You see Stephanie tell Asuka to get out of her face, and we see it be booked by Asuka, not Adam Pearce. Later on in tonight, we're going to see Stephanie McCure versus Kairi Singh, which is some good stuff to me. Later, immediately after this, we go to the locker room where Jimmy Uso is there. We see LA Knight ask him about being his tag team partner later on in the show. And Jimmy says basically, hey, whatever's going on with you and my brother, I don't want to be a part of it. He says, you're putting me in a tough spot right now. Whatever's going on. But, for this match, this tag team match, you want to get done with me being your partner. It's not a thing. I can't do it, right? Which makes sense. It's his brother. You don't want to rock the boat too much with your family. Guys, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe, just like it says in the corner. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know, guys. This channel is expanding rapidly. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that I look very much so forward to showing you guys and being able to display it for you guys. Personally, for me, I don't know if you guys know, but not only am I an on-air content creator, but I also am an editor for a couple of different channels. I edit Robin Lundberg's channel, who is probably the biggest name in the WNBA space right now. And as of this week, I edit for Jake Asman's channel. If you guys don't know who Jake Asman is the biggest content creator on YouTube for the New York Jets, my favorite football team, who got their ass kicked again on Sunday, which, what's new? But I work for Jake Asman now as well. So things are going crazy over here. Haven't been able to sleep for the last couple of days, but hey, just like the great poet Young Jeezy once said, I'll sleep when I die. Next, we get into Kofi Kingston versus Penta. Kofi Kingston and the New Day, they have been beefing with Penta for the last several weeks, getting people to sign this petition to ban the Mexican Destroyer. We see Penta and Kofi. They really had a solid match. Penta, he had a lot of hype coming into WWE. It feels like things have kind of cooled off. I know that Kofi Kingston is a quality opponent, but he's not somebody who's so high up on the card. So if you are looking for a Penta main event, push soon, you might be SOL. But after his promo that he cut at Worlds Collide, it looks like he is going to be used in the AAA WWE merger that they have going on a little bit more frequently. So hopefully there's that. But this was a really good match. You saw Xavier Woods on the apron trying to distract the referee. Grayson Waller came in, but he ate a super kick. Kofi Kingston, he got hit with a Mexican Destroyer. 1, 2, 3. Penta was able to pick up the W. Impressive showing by Penta. I know his brother is sitting there like, damn, what the hell? Because he just lost Andrade, who he's teaming up with, and he's not even on the same show as his brother. That guy, he's probably like a guy who's just sitting in the middle of nowhere like, damn, I can't catch a freaking break. Poor guy. He'll be all right. See Jey Uso backstage. He's on the phone. He's interrupted by his brother Jimmy. Jimmy asks him, who's on the phone? Jey tells him, don't worry about it. The way that the conversation was going, you would kind of be led to assume that he was speaking to Roman, but we don't know yet. Jey Uso tells Jimmy, he's like, hey, man, you got to say no to LA Knight no matter what. No matter what, you have to tell him no. You can't be his tag partner. And Jimmy tells him, like, hey, look, man, I already told him no. He said, but you need to watch how you speak to me and you need to watch your tone. Since you want to treat me like one of your kids, is like, there's going to be a little bit of an issue between us. And he says, last time I checked, it's like you don't have a Ula Falu around your neck. So tension brewing between the brothers, man. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have a brother. I have a brother. There's a decent age gap between us, but brothers, man, it's like you love each other, but every once in a while, you clash. You see after that, you see Jimmy walking down the hallway, and he catches LA Knight. He says, "Do you still need a partner?" He's like, "Cause I'm in." We got that main event set tonight. Jimmy, LA versus the BBs, Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. Tremendous piece of business that is being handled in the main event of Monday Night Raw. Next, we get into the face-to-face between AJ Lee, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Becky Lynch. To me, this is probably the most hyped match heading into WrestlePalooza due to AJ Lee. I'm excited for that. I'm curious to see what she's going to look like. You can tell that CM Punk is elated that he gets to work with his wife and be with her on a weekly basis now. The guy, he can't erase that shit-eating grin off of his face, right? So Becky and Seth Rollins, they come out first. And Becky Lynch, after Seth Rollins goes through his intro, where he's calling himself a visionary, revolutionary, all that stuff, he starts giving his wife Becky Lynch the big time intro. New York Times bestseller, WrestleMania main eventer, the Intercontinental Champion, all of that, right? And then you see Becky, she says, I'm not going to speak, behind AJ Lee's back. I don't have anything that I don't want to say to her that I wouldn't say to her face. AJ Lee's music hits. No cult of personality. CM Punk, he walks out with AJ Lee. AJ Lee is front and center. CM Punk looks to be happy to play the back role, which is cool. And you see CM Punk, he steps up, he says, "I am AJ Lee's husband." The crowd, they chant it. He says, "I'll take that." The guy is elated, very much so, easy to where he can sit there and say that. And he says, "Becky, I've made a career of getting on this mic and telling people how I feel." And he says, but just like how Seth Rollins gave you that long introduction, I don't need to do that. I am more than happy to fall back and let AJ Lee take up the spotlight in this, which, hey, selfless act by the guy. Say what you want about CM Punk. I know he's very divisive. I know it's kind of crazy with me wearing the hat. I just like the hat. I thought it was cool. But you can tell that this is something that, there's been times in his career where he gets very emotional. We saw on not Monday night. We saw at the WrestleMania night main event, the guy cried in the ring because he accomplished something that he always set his eyes on doing. But I feel as if this is probably the happiest time in his career, more so than even main eventing night one of WrestleMania. And what really starts getting into this promo, where I feel as if this is where people are going to come out of this talking. And this is about AJ Lee, right? We see Becky Lynch and AJ Lee talking at each other. And Becky Lynch, she is saying, AJ, I read your book. Very much so a fan of it. She says, but in your book, even though you've spoken about how mentally you feel as if you've healed, what about yourself physically? And that book, and AJ Lee's spoken about in different interviews, about her neck not being in the best shape. And AJ, she's really upfront about this. She says, I haven't took a bump in 10 years. I don't know how my neck is going to hold up. I didn't think about how my neck is going to hold up. I just kind of got into, after what went down on SmackDown, I just kind of skipped into the ring, and everything has kind of been, spontaneous. And Seth Rollins, he steps up to AJ Lee and he says, AJ, I don't know much about you, but I do know your husband like the back of my hand. He tells AJ that she's the best decision CM Punk has ever made. CM Punk looks like he agrees, right? And he says, I know your husband like the back of my hand. He says, and I know that your husband, he likes to quit when things get rough. He likes to, basically insinuating that, that if things aren't the best in their marriage, that he was going to split. And he says, at WrestlePalooza, after my wife is done pummeling you, He said, "What are you going to do if your husband leaves?" She slaps Seth Rollins in the face. Says, "I never hit a lady, but luckily I have somebody who would." Becky Lynch, she's very hesitant. These two are starting to argue. They're not on the same page. Becky Lynch leaves at the ring and she says, you're the one who got us into this fight. You're going to get us out of this, basically. Seth Rollins, he's chased around by CM Punk. And when CM Punk isn't paying attention, Becky Lynch slides back into that ring and hits AJ Lee with a manhandle slam. CM Punk looks furious. They leave the ring. And they are the ones who are able to outsmart CM Punk and AJ Lee. Good stuff. Good stuff. I loved every minute of this. I think that is going to be one of the biggest talking points coming out of this show, how AJ Lee is going to be looking like in the ring after WrestlePalooza. Next, we're going to backstage interview with Dominic Mysterio. If you guys don't know, Dominic Mysterio is the AAA Mega Champion coming off of his big win at Worlds Collide against Vikingo. Really solid match they had as well. Byron Saxton, he's interviewing him, and he says, there's a lot of talk surrounding you and Grande Americano. He says, don't worry about it. He says, I am the double champion. I am the AAA Mega Champion. I'm the Intercontinental Champion. Now this makes me the Mega Intercontinental Champion. We hear a bunch of, ruckus in the back. We cut to a hallway where Penta is getting jumped by the New Day. Poor guy. We next transition to a match between Grande Americano and Dragon Lee, two of Mexico's greatest imports. Guys, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe, just like it says in the corner. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. And always remember that it is free. But this is a really solid match. Grande, ever since that, Ludwig Kaiser has been able to pick up the mantle from Chad Gable. The guy has really been able to take this gimmick and just run with it. I think that he has done a phenomenal job. I think that he is, one of the most over guys on the roster. And I think now with the added layers of seeing the multiple Grandes now, some are shorter than the other. So I don't know. Guess you would have to, what would be the medium word for Grande? Medium Americanos. That they were able to sit there in the system with this win. It looked as if AJ Styles was able to get rid of the second Americano that we have seen. He chased him under the ring, and then after he crawled under the ring, my God. And he threw him over the barricade. We saw another Americano, and he, was able to distract Dragon Lee. Carabana. Carabanera. I can't pronounce. I butchered that name. The submission hold that Grande does as a finisher. He was able to sit there and sink it in on Dragon Lee and make him tap out. Good stuff. This is one of the. I kind of like the new start time at 7. I am a guy who, like I mentioned earlier, with my new responsibilities, doesn't get a lot of sleep. So for it to start earlier, the earlier the better for me. I think it's a great move. Whew. Guys, next week I'm going to be at Monday Night Raw. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get some footage for you guys. I know that you're not allowed to take your cameras there. So maybe I could just record a couple things on my phone. It's not going to really be the same. I kind of want to do more of a vlog style type thing. But we're going to see what can go down for that. At the very least, I'm going to take some pictures. So not the same, but I'm going to work something out. I'm going to try to work something out. Excited for the show. It's going to be my first WWE show live in years. I think the last time I went to a WWE show probably had to be like 2018. I've been to multiple AEW shows since then. I was at Forbidden Door last year, and I was at Revolution last year for Sting's last match. So I've been at a couple AEW shows, also some episodes of Dynamite and Collision in between prior to that as well. But it's been a long time for me to go to a WWE show, and The way that these things are priced, it's probably going to be another while before I can see another show. But Lyra, she's walking towards Bailey's locker room to try to thank her. Bailey, she's in her locker room, and you hear, multiple different voices fighting each other, and then you hear like this loud, like boom noise, and then you see Lyra open up the door and panic, and Bailey is just sitting there as if nothing happened. And Lyra, she thanks Bailey for helping her earlier, and Bailey thanks her as well. And Bailey says, "I want to thank you for reminding me that there's a bunch of idiots back here. So you didn't knock on the door. You just barged in. How do you know that I didn't have any guests back here or any company?" And she basically kicks her out and tells her to just get out. Makes sense. I hate when people sit there and just barge in and don't knock on your door. I remember when I was a teenager, and I lived with my mom. And mom, she would always just open up the door, wouldn't knock or anything. Who knows? Caught me in a bunch of crazy positions. Anyways, we get into Stephanie versus Kairi Singh. Stephanie, next up, I've said it multiple different times. This is our first match we see Stephanie have on Raw, and it feels like forever. Stephanie, there was a one point in this match where she was about to set up the Devil's Kiss on Kairi, but Kairi was able to kind of reverse it into a roll-up. Haven't really seen that very often. I was very impressed. I thought that was dope. We've seen Stephanie crossbody both Asuka and Kairi. It was a very solid, it's a good match. I think Stephanie going into her match with Io, I think Io is going to be the one to pull this one out because Stephanie hasn't been on Raw that often, so I think it'd be kind of, too fast and too rushed for her to do that. I think that she should be the person to take the Intercontinental Championship off of Becky Lynch. And I think this should be kind of like a slow burn for her. She gets the SVB for the win. Oh, God. I yawned once, and now I'm yawning the whole show. Asuka looks as if she's going to want to, step up, go face-to-face with Stephanie. Before she can do that, Io's music hits. Io runs to the ring. She gets in between them. And we see Kairi and Asuka. They're arguing in the back later on. Io, she interrupts and Io tells her, she's like, "This is super important for me to do this thing by myself. I know that you want to help, but it is very, very meaningful to me that I do this by myself." Next, we get into this video package from Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. And just to be honest with you guys, as soon as they call Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso the Usos the greatest tag team of all time, I kind of just tuned out because WWE always does this thing. Nothing can ever be good or nothing can ever be, very good. It's always the greatest. I remember, during the pandemic where they were in the Thunderdome and they set up that match between Edge and Randy Orton. It said greatest wrestling match of all time. Why can't things just be very good? It's just everything has to be the greatest. John Cena, the greatest of all time. The Usos, the greatest tag team of all time. It's just unnecessary to me. But we get backstage into Judgment Day segment. Judgment Day, they are toasting to Dominic Mysterio's big win at Worlds Collide. JD McDonough, he's the one who's leading the toast. And Finn Balor, he basically says, let's kind of pump the brakes on the celebrating. It's been a rough night for the Judgment Day. Roxanne, she lost earlier. And then he says, I got some questions, Dom. I want to ask, what is going on with you and Grande Americano? You are a member of the Judgment Day. He says, we need to know. JD McDonough kind of echoes the same sentiment, but not as angrily as Finn Balor. And Dom says, why is it just so hard to believe that he wants my respect? And he wants the respect from the greatest Mysterio of all time and the king of the luchadors. And Finn Balor says, next time you want to pull that king of the luchadors card, look for some help elsewhere. Rusev, he comes into the clubhouse and he introduces himself. And he introduces himself as the next Intercontinental Champion. You can see Rusev getting himself a nice little push after tapping out Sheamus. feel like people are getting more and more into him. They're still chanting the Rusev Day stuff. I feel as if he wants to get past that, and he says that he kind of wants to get past that, but hey, people are still into it. We get into the main event, Jimmy and LA Knight versus the Breakers, the Bees, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. Too many Bees, right? Jimmy in LA, they are on the same page for the big portions of this match. Braun Breaker, he didn't do as much of the working as Bronson Reed did. It felt like Bronson did the majority of the work for his team. Bronson Reed hits the jagged edge on Jimmy Uso. They pick up the win, which makes me think that the Usos are going to pick up the win at WrestlePalooza. But Braun Breaker, he holds Jimmy Uso to set himself up. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed holds Jimmy Uso to set up a spear from Braun Breaker. Boom. He spears him out of his shoes. Jay Uso's music hits. He comes with a steel chair. He clears the ring. He's able to get the best of Bronson Reed, and he's able to get the best of Braun Breaker. He goes into the ring, and he's comforting his brother in the corner. And while he's comforting his brother in the corner, LA Knight picks up the chair, and it looks as if he's going to hit Jey Uso with the chair. But Jey Uso turns around, and he sees him in time. They pause. Jey Uso tells LA Knight, "We're good." He said, "This is over. We're good. The beef is over." They shake hands. He goes back to comforting his brother Jimmy. And then we see LA Knight turn him around and hit him with a BFT. Says, "Now we're good." That's how this show ended. This is a really solid show for the go-home edition of Raw heading into WrestlePalooza. I think people are excited for the show. I know that everybody is very hyped going into this weekend. It's going to be a big-time wrestling weekend for a lot of us. But, guys, it is getting late, and I have lots of work that needs to get done. But, guys, before I get out of here, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. Always remember that it's free. And also check out my other gigs. Subscribe to the Robin Lumberg Show channel. Subscribe to Jake Asman. I do editing work for those guys, so your support on that would be much appreciated on my end as well. Guys, I am Kevin Zwicker. I'm out.